those brakes sounded and looked bad. Hey friends, it's Len here from 1A Auto. I was having a conversation with a friend. He was telling me he had a serious issue with his front brakes. He brought it to a shop, asked him to check it out. They told him they could fix the issue for only 70 bucks. Seems a little cheap to me. And after being a mechanic for over 20 years, I know exactly what happened and how to fix it. This is what I told him. I see what they did. Pad slap. I'll get into the definition of that a little later. If it sounds like it's coming from the brake rotor and the pads, you should also check those calipers. Make sure they're functioning properly. Once you figure out exactly what you need, order it from 1aauto.com. You know it's going to be shipped fast and free as always. I've got some good news for you, friend. Overall, replacing your brakes is a fairly easy job, assuming you've got the proper part, some basic knowledge, and of course common tools, including a torque wrench. As far as proper parts are concerned, you're going to want to make sure that you diagnose what's actually causing that noise. Quick explanation of a pad slap. You've got a rotor, it looks okay. You take a brand new pad and you slap it in there. That looks fine. So why might somebody even want to do a pad slap? Well, of course, the first thing that comes to my mind is to save money. Everybody's trying to save money these days. Now looking at these brakes, I was right. Somebody did a pad slap. The meaning of a pad slap, essentially they went ahead and they took brand new pads and they put it on old existing rotors. Yeah, maybe these rotors looked okay when they did it, but as I run my finger across it, I can feel a whole bunch of record grooves making their way across. Putting brand new pads on that is going to cause this exact problem. I've got grooves going into these brand new pads and they're worn unevenly. Things that can commonly happen if you were to just replace the pads and not the rotors, firstly, would be noise. Of course, once your new pads are wearing into those old rotors, you're going to start hearing a whole bunch of noise and you're not going to like it. The stopping distance. You're driving down the road, you go to hit on those brakes, the new pads are wearing into the rotors unevenly, they're not gripping the way they're supposed to, and it's going to take you longer to stop. Overall, it's going to affect your safety. And it's going to waste a whole bunch of time and money because you're going to have to go ahead and replace those pads at the same time as you replace the rotors. So now you just bought pads twice. Doesn't make any sense. So the way that I knew that the person only did a pad slap on this particular vehicle before I even took a look at it is because of the price. It's going to cost even me, working at 1A Auto, more than $70 to be able to do a brake job on this vehicle. So now with all that said, I want to talk to you about how I would do a proper brake job. So I'll try to slow it down a little bit, but picture this. You want to safely raise and support the front of the vehicle. Go ahead and remove that wheel and compare the brand new parts to the original parts that you have in the vehicle. Once you've done that, remove the caliper slider bolts and the caliper. Push back the piston. You want to make sure that the caliper is good, obviously. Remove those pads and give them a close inspection. If it looks like they're worn oddly, that's going to be something you want to pay attention to. Go ahead and knock that rotor off of there. Be careful. You don't want it to fall off and potentially hurt you. Once you have the rotor off of there, make sure that you clean the wheel bearing hub. That's the area where your brand new rotor is going to sit. If you do not clean this properly, you're going to find that you have a brake pulsation, and that's no good. Okay, so the brakes are all apart. We cleaned up that hub. This is looking good. We're ready for the installation. Now for the installation, there's something that you want to pay attention to. Each vehicle is going to have different torque specifications for the mounting hardware. You need to know those specifications, and it's important to make sure you have a torque wrench. Now the first thing we're going to do for our brake installation is to make sure we coat that bearing hub with some copper never-sees. That's going to help make sure that the new rotor comes off of there in the future when it comes time to replace your brakes again. After that, go ahead and clean down the brand new brake rotor and inspect it. Once it's inspected, go ahead and put it onto the wheel bearing hub and then hold it in place with one of your lug nuts. Now that we have the lug nut holding that rotor in place, let's move along to the caliper bracket. It's important to make sure that you strip this down and clean it and re-lubricate it properly. What I mean by stripping it down is you want to make sure you remove the tins, the boots, and the slider pins. After you have the tins off of there, go ahead and discard them. You're going to recycle those. After that, go ahead and clean up the area where the tins were. You want to make sure it's sanded down, clean, and free of any debris. Remove the pins like I said, and inspect that hole. Clean it out, make sure there's nothing inside there. Clean the pins themselves, make sure they're not rotted or damaged in any way, and clean those boots, make sure they're soft and pliable. Once you have all that cleaned, go ahead and lubricate everything. The four corners, where those tins were, and each of the slider pins. Everything needs to be well lubricated with high temperature caliper lube. After you have all that back together, make sure that you clean up the caliper bracket bolts. You want to make sure the threads are nice and clean and then recoat them with some red thread locker. Install the caliper bracket, put in your caliper bolts, and torque them to manufacturer's specifications. So we're moving along here. Now it's the point where you're going to put in your brand new brake pads. Now those brake pads, when you slide them in there, you definitely want to make sure that they just go ahead and slide right in. If you have to press them in or hammer them in, that generally means that you didn't clean the caliper bracket well enough. Lubricate the caliper piston and the outboard ears of each of the calipers. Once you have that done, you want to go ahead and carefully slide that right over those brake pads and put in the caliper slider bolts. Once again, a little bit of red thread locker really couldn't hurt. Now once you have all that back together, just go ahead and double check your work. You need to make sure you torqued everything along the way and double check that flex hose. You want to make sure it looks like it's a pretty much straight line. If it looks like it's twisted like a pigtail in any way, that could cause restriction in the brake fluid, and that's going to be very bad overall. Now at this point, you've got one side of the brakes done. That's pretty easy, right? Told you. Go ahead and switch over to the other side, do the exact same thing. Now once we get the wheel up on there, you're going to want to torque that to manufacturer's specifications. Super important. When you torque it, make sure you have it on the ground, otherwise the wheel's probably just going to spin on you. After you have the wheel torqued, go ahead and climb inside the passenger compartment and pump up that brake pedal till it's nice and firm. Assuming it feels good, climb under the hood and check that master cylinder. The master cylinder is where your brake fluid is. If it's a little low, inspect it and make sure you know exactly what type of fluid to use. Commonly, you're probably going to use .3 brake fluid, but some vehicles use .3, .4, or even .5, and you really don't want to mix them up. Now at this point, go ahead and close the hood and take it for a road test. While you're out there, grab me an ice cream. Whew. Did you get all that?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Nice.
Thanks for the advice. That was awesome. I was totally listening. Yeah, can you explain it again just in case I wasn't?
Okay, friend, well, I hope you liked the video. I hope you learned a little something. If there's something in this video that you thought was interesting or you think somebody else might find it interesting, go ahead and share it with them. It would mean everything to me. If you like the video or even love the video, go ahead and smash on the like button for me. It would mean the world. While you're at it, go ahead and subscribe, ring the bell. That way there you, all of your friends, can be kept up with all of our latest content. Thanks. And I've got some good news for you, friend. For you, friend. You get something in my teeth. Proper part, basic knowledge, common tools, including torque wrench. Assuming you have some basic parts, how I would do a proper brake.
So I wanted to see what you think I should do. What do you think?